There's a thought most people never say out loud, not because it's dramatic, not because it's shocking, but because it feels embarrassing. It usually shows up quietly, late at night, while scrolling, or during a moment when everything else goes still. The thought is simple: I feel behind everyone my age. Not behind in one specific thing, just behind. You look around and it seems like people your age are moving. They've picked paths. They sound certain. They're posting milestones you didn't even know you were supposed to hit yet. And even if your life is okay, even if nothing is technically wrong, there's a dull pressure sitting underneath everything, like you missed a turn somewhere. What makes this feeling worse is that it doesn't come with panic. It comes with silence. You still go to work, you still function, you still show up. But internally, there's a growing distance between where you are and where you thought you'd be. And the most confusing part? You can't tell if you're actually behind or just more aware than everyone else. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this feeling targets thoughtful people first, why age comparisons quietly distort reality, and why the solution is not to rush, but to reorient. And at the end, I'll give you practical, grounded steps you can use immediately. Not motivational advice, not cliches, but things that actually reduce this pressure. But first, we need to talk about why this feeling exists at all. Part 1. Why this feeling targets aware people first. Here's something that rarely gets said. People who feel behind are usually not failing. They're observing. This feeling doesn't hit people who are numb. It doesn't hit people who are careless. It doesn't hit people who never reflect. It hits people who think. You notice patterns. You notice timelines. You notice expectations that were never written down, but somehow still feel real. You remember what you thought life would look like by now. And because you're self-aware, you don't just compare achievements, you compare potential. You think, I know I'm capable. I understand what I need to do. So why does it still feel like I'm not moving? That gap between awareness and execution creates tension. And tension without release turns into self-doubt. Here's the quiet irony. The people most capable of building meaningful lives are often the ones who feel the most behind, because they can see the distance clearly, and clarity without motion doesn't feel empowering. It feels heavy. But this doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means you're standing at a point where awareness has outgrown direction, and that's uncomfortable, but important. We'll come back to this later, because this awareness is actually an advantage once you know how to use it. Part 2. What you're really comparing yourself to. When you compare yourself to others, you're not comparing lives. You're comparing visibility, you see, promotions, relationships, confidence, certainty. What you don't see: confusion, doubt, second-guessing, private fear. Most people don't wait to feel ready before moving forward. They move first, then adjust. They announce things while still unsure. They choose paths they don't fully understand yet. They commit publicly and figure it out quietly. Meanwhile, reflective people wait. They want clarity first. They want alignment first. They want to feel confident before they act, so they stay invisible longer. And invisibility creates the illusion of being behind. Here's the dangerous part. The longer you stay invisible, the more convincing the story becomes. You start believing, everyone else has momentum. Everyone else figured it out. I must be late. But momentum doesn't always mean meaning. Sometimes it just means speed without reflection. And speed hides confusion very well. Part 3. Why age feels like a deadline. Age only becomes painful when direction feels unclear. At 18, age feels open. At 25, it starts to whisper. At 30, it starts to shout. Not because something magically changes, but because comparison intensifies. Age turns into a scoreboard only when you let it. You start attaching identity to numbers. If I haven't done this by now, if I were smarter, I'd be further. If I didn't waste time, I wouldn't be here. But age is not a universal timeline. It's a container. Some lives expand early and stabilize. Others compress early and expand later. Many people who seem ahead are simply early starters, not better builders. And many people who feel behind are just late bloomers in a world that celebrates early visibility. Here's the reframe most people miss. Being behind assumes there is one correct order. There isn't. There is only your sequence. And sequences don't reveal themselves until you're already moving. Part 4. The hidden role of pauses. From the outside, pausing looks like stagnation. But internally, pauses serve different purposes. Some pauses are avoidance. Others are recalibration. And here's where thoughtful people struggle. They pause longer, not because they're afraid, but because they care about direction. They don't want momentum without meaning. They don't want speed without alignment. But the world doesn't reward invisible preparation. So while you're refining internally, others appear to be advancing externally. And this creates pressure. You start questioning your pace, your decisions, your worth. But consider this. Many people who move fast early spend years later undoing misalignment. They built lives that looked right, but felt wrong. Pauses can be protective. They help you avoid committing to versions of life that don't fit. The danger isn't pausing. The danger is never restarting. Which brings us to the most important part of this video. Part 5. How people actually move forward. Progress for thoughtful people doesn't start with confidence. It starts with constraint. You stop asking, what's the perfect move? And start asking, what's the next honest step? You reduce thinking time. You shorten feedback loops. You allow action to teach you what thinking couldn't. Momentum creates clarity, not the other way around. Once movement starts, awareness becomes useful again. You adapt faster. You notice patterns sooner. You course correct intelligently. But none of that happens without motion. Action is not the absence of thought. It's thought that accepts uncertainty. Part 6. Takeaways. How to move without panic or pressure. Before we close, let's slow this down and make it practical. Not in a fix your life today way, but in a way that actually reduces the pressure you're feeling. You don't need a transformation. You need traction. Here are grounded takeaways you can work with, quietly, realistically, and consistently. 1. Stop measuring your life against other people's timelines. Comparison becomes toxic when it's abstract. You compare their highlight moments, their certainty, their visible milestones. What you don't compare, their doubts, their private resets, their long periods of confusion. Instead of asking, why am I not where they are? Ask, am I further than I was 6 months ago? In clarity, skill, or honesty. If the answer is yes, you are not behind. You are progressing, just not loudly. 2. Choose one direction for a season, not forever. One of the biggest traps thoughtful people fall into is trying to make permanent decisions. You don't need to choose a life, you need to choose a season. 3 months, 6 months, one focused direction. Enough time to gather real feedback, not just thoughts. Commitment doesn't mean you're stuck, it means you're learning. Most clarity comes after you stay long enough to see patterns. 3. Measure progress by actions taken, not outcomes achieved. Outcomes are delayed. Actions are immediate. If you measure yourself only by results, you'll feel behind constantly. Instead, track. Did I show up today? Did I act despite uncertainty? Did I learn something real? Momentum is built on repetition, not reward. When action becomes consistent, confidence stops being forced. It becomes earned. 4. Expect discomfort and stop interpreting it as failure. Discomfort doesn't mean you chose wrong. It often means you're learning something new, you're leaving theory behind, you're no longer hiding in preparation. Confusion is not a red flag. Doubt is not a warning sign. They're signals that you've entered unfamiliar territory, which is where growth actually happens. Comfort is not progress. Familiarity is not alignment. 5. Reduce thinking time before action. Give your mind boundaries. Decide in advance. I'll think about this for one evening. I'll research this for 1 hour. I'll plan this today, then act tomorrow. Endless thinking feels responsible, but it quietly delays life. Clarity improves after movement, not before it. 6. Protect momentum more than motivation. Motivation is emotional. Momentum is mechanical. You don't need to feel inspired. You need to stay in motion. Even small actions matter when they're repeated. 1 email, 1 page, 1 workout, 1 uncomfortable conversation. Momentum changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who knows what to do and start becoming someone who does it. 7. Redefine what behind actually means. Feeling behind doesn't mean you failed. It means you became aware. And awareness is not the end of the road. It's usually the beginning of a more honest one. Many people rush forward to avoid reflection. You paused because you cared about direction. That matters. This is not about catching up. It's about aligning forward. You don't need to outrun time. You need to move with it. And even slow movement, when it's consistent, changes everything. If this video resonated, it's not because you're behind. It's because you're aware. And awareness without motion feels like pressure. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not late. You've been waiting for certainty in a world that only responds to action. At some point, preparation stops protecting you and starts containing you. Life doesn't open all at once. It opens in response. One step, one decision, one honest movement forward. And if you're still here listening, that tells me something important. You haven't quit. You've been waiting for permission. This is it. Not to rush, not to fix everything, but to move. Imperfectly, quietly, honestly. And that's enough.